You are listening to the Aging Starts Now podcast, where it's all about responding with confidence to the legal, financial, and personal challenges created by a disability, unexpected illness, or aging in general. Join us weekly as elder law attorneys Barbara McGinnis and Chris Johnson, along with other members of the Johnson-McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning team, talk about the tools, techniques, strategies, and services that will make the elder care journey easier for everyone involved. Get ready, because aging starts now.
If you're caring for a child, an adult family member, or anyone who depends on ongoing support, you already know how important it is to protect their well-being, both now and long after you're no longer able to advocate for them. But what many families don't realize is that even well-intentional financial gifts or inheritances can accidentally disqualify a loved one from essential benefits like Medicaid or SSI. On today's episode of Aging Starts Now, we are diving into a topic that can truly change the future of individuals with disabilities, and that is special needs trust. Joining us for today's conversation is Josh Hunter, an associate attorney here at Johnson-McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning. Welcome, Josh.
Hi, Dana. Thanks for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. What exactly is a special needs trust?
Well, I think it's good to just kind of start with what's a trust in general, right? And then we can really get into what makes something a special needs trust. And the short idea is a trust is just a way of legally holding assets. And that can be used in so many different ways that we have to differentiate, one type of trust from another. So special needs trust particularly, it's a way to hold assets for somebody, frankly, who should not have assets directly in their name because of some form of disability or something going on in their life where it's better for an individual to manage assets for that person rather than them receiving an inheritance or having that asset outright.
Right. So whenever I think about special needs trusts, I always think about someone who's on public benefits and they, an inheritance or a settlement would kick them off of those benefits. Is that kind of a good way to think about it?
It is, as many of those public benefits in which people rely have financial limitations, either income limitations, asset limitations, medical requirements, or all of the above. And you don't want a well-intentioned inheritance, or if that individual is working and generating income and assets themselves, you don't want those assets to eliminate someone's lifeline. And that's really what these public benefits can be.
Yeah, I just don't think people think about that. So are there different types of special needs trusts?
Oh, most certainly. And I think today there are really three different flavors we should talk about. The first party special needs trust, also known as a self-settled trust, is one that's created by that individual who has a disability, right? They're creating it themselves because they already have assets in their name. And that can be because they were working or they've received an inheritance or whatever the case may be. That individual is setting up their own trust. But that's not the only way it can happen. Sometimes parents may choose to set up a trust for a disabled child, or someone else may want to leave assets to someone who is in this exact situation we're talking about. That is known as a third-party trust. And then there are several different flavors of both, right? So for a first-party trust, there's really two. There's a D4A trust, and that's just specifically a statutory reference where that individual is going to set up their own trust. It's going to be managed by a trustee, and that has Medicaid payback language, right? That says if that individual was using Medicaid, their assets left over when they pass, it should go to pay back Medicaid. But another type of first-party special needs trust is known as a pooled trust, or a D4C trust. Some of our listeners may have heard of companies like Vista Points, and the idea is rather than having an individual trust and trustee, you pool your assets with others in a similar situation to get the most out of those investments, and it's managed by a third party that is a non-for-profit organization like Vista Points. And which option's the best fit really depends on the individual.
Okay. So let's say that you are about to receive a settlement from a trucking accident or something. Would you go with the pooled trust or the self-settled trust?
It's a good question, right? Do you want the D4A option or what's known as the D4C? And again, those are just statutory references. Don't worry about the details in regards to those statutes. The bigger idea is, do you have somebody identified who can be a good trustee for you, who knows your situations and can help you out? Or would you prefer to use a third party not-for-profit as your trustee? That's really one of the biggest linchpin decisions there, because that individual can go either way. So long as that individual is under the age of 65, they're allowed to choose either path. If they're over the age of 65, well, then they're probably looking at the D4C trust, and that's just out of statutory necessity. But what we typically see here at our office is if somebody under the age of 65 is on public benefits and they know a person who can be a good trustee, they're probably going to go with the D4A trust. If somebody's over the age of 65 and obviously can't qualify for a D4A trust, then they're looking at what's known as the D4C, and they're going to work with that third party not-for-profit, like a Vista Points or something like that. So sometimes it's decided by the situation.
Okay. So let's say that I come to Johnson McGinnis and I set up this special needs trust, and so the inheritance or the settlement money goes into this trust. How can I benefit from that?
Well, the good news is if you set up a special needs trust for yourself, right? So we're still talking about first party special needs trusts. You are the sole beneficiary of that trust. That means those assets are not allowed to benefit anybody else. The trustee has to, by fiduciary obligation, which means by legal obligation, that trustee has to do what is in your best interest to assist you. So it's good to know that's exactly what this tool is made for, is to really help that individual with a disability get the most out of their assets and retain those public benefits that are acting as a lifeline.
Okay. So, what kinds of things can this trust money bucket pay for? So I get to keep my benefits, but then I get to spend the trust money on other things?
That's generally a good way to look at it. And I would say it really depends on what public benefits you have. For example, if you're utilizing something like TennCare, which is Tennessee's implementation of the federal Medicaid program, it's a lot more lenient and that money can be used in more ways than, say, an individual who has SSI. So that Social Security income, that supplemental security income, has a lot of limitations tied to it. And if the trustee is not careful and accidentally breaches some of those requirements, you may mess somebody up and reduce what their benefits are. So it's very dependent upon what public benefits you're using, or if you have multiple, what's the most restrictive public benefits you're using, and then following those rules. So that makes picking your trustee extra important.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess in some ways that might be a reason to go with a professional trustee or a pooled trust.
It totally could be, right? If you don't have that individual in your life that, can manage this or do that for you, or is willing to kind of put up with all the hoops they have to work around in dealing with these public benefits, then yes, these third-party non-for-profits are very skilled at what they do, and they know how to play this game as that's their profession. So maybe that is an influence in that decision if it's not the age-based implications we've already discussed.
So what if it isn't like a settlement or anything? You are just a family that has an adult special needs child, and you want to leave them some money, some inheritance, but you don't want to kick them off their benefits. What do you do?
Well, that's one of my favorite trusts to talk about. So instead of a first-party trust, where the individual with the disability is creating the trust, there's something known as a third-party special needs trust. And that's where somebody else who is not that disabled individual is creating the trust for the individual with disabilities. The most common example, right, is parents creating a third-party special needs trust for a disabled child. We see that all the time. And the good news is it's a more flexible tool, and it does not have to have the Medicaid payback, and actually it shouldn't. So sometimes it can be a better tool, really, in regards to getting the most out of those assets. So the family member would create this trust for the sole benefit of that individual with disabilities, and the idea is the same. The trustee would only be able to do things in the best interest of that individual with disabilities. It's a great tool just set up by somebody else, which means it has different statutory requirements. Don't misunderstand me, though. That individual still needs to be careful about the rules of the public benefits and not to make disbursements or pay for things that are already covered by that public benefit and inadvertently cause problems.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I understand. If it is a first party, the individual who is receiving the benefits, they set it up themselves,
Right.
and whatever is left over in that trust when that individual passes away goes to Medicaid.
Well, it depends on what kind of Medicaid debt they had. But yes, Medicaid gets the first opportunity to be paid back.
Okay.
That is the idea. And if we use a pooled trust and we're using a company, that company has an opportunity to receive payment too.
Okay. And then if a family member, a parent, sets it up for their adult child, then that money isn't subject to Medicaid payback.
Exactly right. And the other good thing is once the parents, let's say we're continuing with your example, the parents set that trust up, other family members and other people can contribute to that trust to help that individual with special needs. So it kind of becomes this big landing pad for everybody that loves that individual and wants to help them. It's great.
Okay. So it sounds to me like if you are someone with an adult child with special needs, you want to set it up for them yourself because it offers more flexibility.
That's right. It is far better for you to create the third-party special needs trust than it is for that individual to inherit, to panic and be afraid that they're going to lose their benefits, and then quickly try to set up a first-party trust where some of those benefits or some of those assets may go back to Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, yeah, definitely use that third-party trust if you're trying to help somebody with disabilities.
So what are some of the common mistakes or missteps families might make, when planning for a loved one with special needs?
Well, the first common mistake that comes to my mind is not paying close attention to the public benefits you're working with. Every benefit's a little different, right? I've already alluded to the fact that TennCare's rules are a little different than those established under SSI, which means you can't treat it all the same. And if the trustee is not careful, they may accidentally cause a reduction in benefits or pay for something they shouldn't or accidentally deviate from the rules. So I guess the big topic there is the trustee accidentally making a mistake. And that could be pulling out cash and giving it to the individual with disabilities. All these things you cannot do. The other thing I think that many families forget about is, and while it's not a mistake, it just adds flexibility, is utilizing something like an ABLE account. And while that is not a trust, it is for the person with the disability. It can be funded by that individual or family and friends. And, an authorized individual is going to manage that account for the person with disabilities. And even though it has annual contribution limits and total account limits, there's no Medicaid payback, and that adds a lot of flexibility for both the individual with disabilities and that trustee to help the person who has disabilities. So I think many families forget about that layer too.
Well, it sounds like the trustee plays a really important role. So what should families look for when they're choosing a trustee?
I think you need to look for somebody who, hopefully, if you're able to, who knows the individual with disabilities, knows what they find quality in their life doing, right? What matters to that individual? How do they enjoy living? What's their standard of living? What individual disability are they dealing with? And what's the trajectory of that look like, right? Know the person you're serving. And then beyond that point, somebody who is willing to ask for help if they don't know what to do, or research things, or dig in. This is going to sound harsh, but if we have somebody who's known to be rather complacent and skirt the rules, this is not the role for that type of individual. Because acting as the trustee of a special needs trust is a big job. It is a particular job. It requires good record keeping and a good understanding of playing by the rules. So picking that right person is crucial.
And if families are thinking about doing a special needs trust, how early should they start with planning?
Well, I'm of the opinion as soon as you know you have a child who has special needs, you should contemplate folding that into your estate plan. Even if it's not a trust that you create right now, per se, it's something that you could fold into your will or your estate plan that says, okay, if I pass away unexpectedly, my young child with special needs is not going to inherit something that's going to cause them problems. Beyond that point, the earlier the better would be my next answer. If you hadn't got to do it that early, review your situation and see, should you incorporate one into your plan now? And how would that work in conjunction with other benefits like ABLE accounts and what they're already receiving publicly to help that individual get the most out of their situation? And it may even help their parents or loved ones too.
Okay. So if someone listening thinks that they're going to do this and that they might need a special needs trust, what should their first step be?
If somebody's listening to this and they believe that it's appropriate for their planning, they should talk to their estate planning attorney. If you work with us, this is information that we deal with quite a bit, and we're comfortable talking you through it. If it's a family or a loved one that lives in another state, right, coordinate with somebody who not only understands estate planning, but understands both public benefits and their rules, along with the unique rules for special needs trusts. And that's not a huge population of people, so research it well and make sure you ask your questions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Josh. That brings us to the end of today's episode, and I hope this conversation has given you more clarity and confidence when it comes to understanding special needs trust and how they can protect the long-term well-being of someone you care about. If you found this episode helpful, please share it. Johnson McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning is a life care planning law firm helping families navigate the financial complexities and healthcare questions that can come with aging. Join us next week for another episode of Aging Starts Now.
Thank you for listening to the Aging Starts Now podcast. For more information about today's show, visit tn-elderlaw.com, click on the Free Resources tab, and then click on Aging Starts Now. You'll find the show notes there. And while you're at it, why not check out all the free resources available at tn-elderlaw.com. Document downloads, the Johnson McGinnis blog, educational videos, informative articles, helpful links, a TV show, and more. It's all there, free for the taking. If you enjoy listening to the Aging Starts Now podcast, please subscribe, rate the show, or leave us a review. It's easy to do on whatever app you use to listen. We would love your feedback on the show. Aging Starts Now. We'll be back next week with more candid discussions about the challenges created by aging, disability, and unexpected illness.